morning. Greetings and welcome to The Bright Side, your nutritional program dedicated to the understanding of the vast world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. I'm your host, Pharmacist Ben, nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado. I use nutritional supplements in my practice where other healthcare practitioners use toxic pharmaceutical drugs and deadly medical procedures. If you suspect that there are natural nutritional roads to your health and vitality and well-being and to addressing your health challenges, whatever they may be, but you don't know where to begin, you have come to the right place. As you listen to The Bright Side every day, you are more and more in control of your body, you are more and more knowledgeable, and you know you can overcome any health issue. That's why we are here every day on The Bright Side, helping clear up the sometimes confusing world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. Over the last 29 years of practicing pharmacy, I've seen drug-free recoveries from diabetes and hypertension and obesity and skin diseases like psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, acne, digestive ailments, autoimmune issues of all kinds, recoveries that by the standards of modern medicine can only be called a miracle. But what is in the world of the body, what is in the world of biology, standard operating procedure, because the human biological system is a healing system. It's a regenerating system. It is designed divinely to heal and renew itself on a moment-to-moment basis. And while some folks may call that healing, renewing, regenerating system a miracle, it really is just the way the body works. If you have questions about health or nutrition or prescription drugs, we welcome your calls on The Bright Side. 844-236-6010. 844-236-6010 is our number today and every day. On The Bright Side, 844-236-6010. If you have questions about skin health formulations, the longevity products, nutritional supplements, you want to wean yourself off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, we can help you do that. 844-236-6010. Or if you just have a success story where you want to contribute to the conversation. If you want to purchase any of the longevity products you hear advertised on the program, please go to brightsideben.com or criticalhealthnews.com or pharmacistben.com. We update pharmacistben.com and criticalhealthnews.com with news stories and blog posts. And you can buy products off the website, or you can sign up to join the Brightside Ben team right off the website. You can also call the phone team at 866-735-2470. And, of course, if you want to purchase any of our Truth Treatment products, including the Retinol 5% Gel, Truth Serum, Truth Balm, if you want one product, go Truth Serum. That's what I would be doing if you just want one product. If you want two products, go Truth Serum and Retinol Gel. If you want all four products, that's the best way to do it, in my humble opinion. But one product, Truth Serum. If you want two products, get the Truth Serum and the Retinol 5% Gel. Okay. We have been talking about the distinction between water-soluble nutrition and fat-soluble nutrition, and particularly how this distinction affects the skin. The skin is a barrier to water. Active ingredients have to have a certain amount of fat solubility. If you're making a buying decision based on the activity of an active ingredient, it's important to know, to recognize that that active ingredient has to get through the stratum corneum, it has to get through the skin surface, and that requires fat solubility. And by the way, this whole discussion that we've been having is not academic. It's not just science. It's about buying decisions. It's about not being ripped off. It's about not being exploited. There's many, many, many active ingredients that are theoretically active, but because of their inability, because of their chemical nature, they can't permeate through the surface, and that doesn't do you any good. Vitamin C is the classic case of an utterly and completely non-functional ingredient that theoretically is super important. If you ever see the term ascorbic acid in a skincare product, you can immediately assume that whoever put that product together either knows nothing about skin and skin chemistry and how the skin works, or if they do, they just don't care. Or if they do, because ascorbic acid is so cheap, and many, if not most consumers who aren't listening to The Bright Side, that is, most consumers have no idea that ascorbic acid is not an effective form of vitamin C. And they certainly don't know that ascorbic acid is unstable. So ascorbic acid in a skincare ingredient is either a confession of ignorance or a confession of I don't care. But ascorbic acid's cheap, and because consumers don't know the difference, you'll see it everywhere. Everywhere. You'll see it in the most expensive products. There was one product, it's still out there. I'm not even going to mention its name, but you guys, if you're a product junkie like I am, you know what I'm talking about. It's a vitamin C product. It was not made by, but the doctor who did a lot of the research on vitamin C in the skin back in the 90s, he put his stamp of approval on it, and I think he may have started the company. Anyway, the product is 10% ascorbic acid. It turns brown in the bottle, and the stuff costs $100 plus for an ounce of it. $100 plus for an ounce of this stuff. It turns brown in the bottle. It was so bad that when the product first came out, not only did it turn brown, it just got all gooky and yucky, but they still sold it for $100, and the salespeople would say not to worry about it because they know it still works. Baloney. It's still out there, but the first company didn't even want to have anything to do with it, so they sold it to another company. Now this other company has been doing it for the last 20 years. It turns brown right in the bottle. If you're an esthetician listening to this program, you know the product I'm talking about probably. The point is that this is the nature of the beast that we're dealing with in skincare. We're dealing with companies that don't care about us. And it's really the same way with a lot of healthcare companies and nutritional companies, unfortunately, too. It's just, when you're talking about health, it's really true about everything. It's true. Try talking to somebody at Dell Computer when your computer's messed up. Call them up and see how quick it takes, how fast they answer the phone, and how much help you get. It's like our entire world is like that, where products don't do what they're supposed to do, and things break, and it's just the nature of the beast. But in the world of healthcare, it's particularly egregious. It seems to me to be particularly just nasty. And skincare is at the top of the list of these kinds of businesses, unfortunately. So we got to be savvy. We, the consumer, have to be ingredient readers, really. That's really what it amounts to. How a skin product feels is not a good way to assess its value. You got to understand, first of all, we got to be ingredient readers, and then we got to understand a little bit about ingredients. By the way, and just because something's fatty doesn't mean it's going to do anything. I've been talking about fat-soluble, water-soluble. Fat-soluble ingredients can be baloney, too. There's lots of fatty ingredients that sit on the skin surface. Silicon is a classic type of fatty ingredient that sits on the skin surface. In fact, silicon is one of the most fascinating of all the skincare ingredients. Silicon. Yes, silicon, like silicon breasts. The same kind of stuff that they use for industry and for medical uses. Silicon is a really kind of an incredible substance. The intelligence of the planet is largely silicon-based intelligence via silicon chips. Silicon is crazy amazing, and it's also, particularly crazy amazing in the world of skincare. It's one of the all-time favorite ingredients for skincare companies to use. You'll find it in high concentrations in a lot of products, super high concentrations. That's one of the reasons why silicon, and you can always tell silicon by the ending O-N-E, silicon, cyclomethicone, dimethicone, O-N-E, at the end of a word tells you have silicone. But now the skincare companies have gotten wise to that, and now they're putting the chemical names on there instead of the kind of, not generic, but the common name. Silicon's a common name. Anyway, you'll find it in fancy eye creams. Here's the thing about silicon that makes it so cool. It really makes it cool for a lot of reasons. It has some very interesting electromagnetics. When you put it on your skin, you'll rub your finger along where you applied your silicone-containing product. And you can use straight silicone. If you 100% silicone, it's completely inert and non-toxic. And it has a magnetic property so that your finger kind of glides on top of the silicone. That's why it's used in industry as a lubricant. It has this amazing ability to repel your finger. Not in a major way, obviously, but in a very, 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 very subtle way, in a quantum way, really. It repels your finger as you rub your finger along it, and this creates an amazing feel. If you've ever rubbed eye creams, typically we'll use silicons. If you ever put an eye cream on and you rub your finger along it, you go, oh my God, that feels so amazing. That was silicon. All right. We'll talk, there's a couple other things I want to tell you about. We'll talk here about oil, because that's another very interesting one. And not just any oil. There's a really interesting oil that comes from gasoline, or at least is derived from the petroleum industry. I'll tell you what that is when we come back from our break. All right, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. We're talking about fats and water-soluble, fat-soluble, water-soluble in the world of skincare ingredients. You have to be an ingredient reader. That's really the only way to make a buying decision. The way we make buying decisions is the silliest thing when you think about it. How we make buying decisions on our skincare products, we rub it on our skin and we say, oh, that feels nice. And then we buy or we don't buy. Well, what does that tell you, really? It tells you felt the product and the product feels nice on your skin. Now, if you're just looking for something that's going to feel nice, that's one thing. But if you're looking for an active product that's going to do something, you have to become an ingredient deck reader. The real way to tell, of course, the best way to tell is what does your skin look like after you use the product? Does it heal things? Does it change the quality of your skin? Does your skin look better? And it shouldn't take very long. You know, skincare companies are always coming to me with the latest and greatest ingredient. And their thing is, here's the dirty little secret about skincare and skincare ingredients. Skincare ingredients really can't work, with the exception of vitamin A and vitamin C, legally. Because if they worked legally, in other words, if they worked, if they passed legal muster, if they were okay to sell as an over-the-counter product from a legal standpoint, and they worked, it would become a drug. But the skincare company couldn't sell the product. Ingredients would be drugs if they really worked. This is why vitamin A and vitamin C are the only two ingredients that will have a definitive effect on the skin, because there's a distinction that the Food and Drug Administration makes, the FDA makes, between over-the-counter skincare products and real skincare products. Real skincare products, products that have a real effect, are regulated as drugs because they're creating a change in the body. That's the definition of a drug. It somehow modifies, creates some kind of change in the body, real change. That's why retinoic acid is a drug, by the way, or one of the reasons retinoic acid is a drug, Retin A. So skincare companies come up with these ways of assessing how good a skincare product, skincare ingredient is by doing testing. And they'll test the product either on a real person, or they'll do the test in a test tube. But the way they assess the value of the ingredients, they'll say, oh, it decreases wrinkles 20%, or it increases thickness 10%. And they'll come up with these numbers, these metrics. But what does that really mean? Who knows what 10% increases thickness, 10% removes? You see on TV, you see commercials, 84% of people notice the difference. What kind of difference? What do you mean notice the difference? You know, there's all kinds of ways of assessing the value of an ingredient that have nothing to do with real value. That's why I don't even really pay attention to most new ingredients that come out. Every once in a while, there'll be a good ingredient that comes out from a chemistry perspective. But from an ingredient perspective, you're looking at vitamin A and vitamin C, and that's pretty much it, you guys. Vitamin A, vitamin C, and hydroxy acids, and that's pretty much it. What you want to stay away from, though, the ingredients you want to stay away from are the fragrances and the perfumes and the emulsifiers and the surfactants. You know, it's one thing if you're just rubbing something on, you like the way it feels, and that's fine, you're not paying a lot of money for it. But why would you rub on wax and emulsifier and preservative and fragrance and all the other stuff? And not just rub it in, not just put it on your skin, we rub it in. If you really want to just use something on your skin that is just going to feel good but not necessarily do anything, use coconut oil. Coconut oil, you know, and actually coconut oil has some good stuff in it. Coconut oil has vitamin E. Vitamin E can help act as a sort of protectant, environmental protectant. Coconut oil also has a certain kind of fat in it, medium chain triglycerides. We've talked about those as fats that are important for helping the body internally. MCTs. MCTs have some really fascinating properties. They're kind of like a water-soluble fat. And so MCTs taken internally can be used as a source of energy without costing you calories. MCT on the outside of the skin acts as a penetrating agent. And so MCTs from coconut oil can act to improve penetration of things. The vitamin E is in there. So coconut oil is not too shabby. But for the most part, it's not really going to do anything because nothing's getting into a cell itself. It's only sitting in the outside, in the tissue part, in the stuff part. If skin is cells and stuff, it's sitting in the stuff part. So coconut oil is probably the best thing you can put on your skin if you're looking just to create a certain sensation on the skin. You know what? Make your own skincare products. Make your own moisturizers, avocados and yogurt and egg and oatmeal. These are all